Hey, thank you very much for clicking on this video and watching this video. Remember to become a VIP member by subscribing to the channel and also join me every single weekday 4 p.m. or 1600 GMT on the Business Lecturer in Within Show as I teach you live and ask you questions and answer any questions that you are having. So click the subscribe button and become a VIP member. Remember to follow me as well on Instagram at Nhyira Premium. Enjoy the video. Hi, so welcome to my class on the principles of taxation. This is a subject that is the paper 2.6 in your professional qualification syllabus, that is the level 2 paper. Previously was advanced taxation and fiscal policy, but now splitted into principle of taxation in level 2 and then advanced taxation in level 3. Now, the principle of taxation sets the tone, sets the basis, gives us the foundation on what we need to understand about taxation in Ghana. So, in the principle of taxation, you'll be discussing the various fundamental issues in taxation, and that is going to build your understanding so that you can deal with the biggest tasks in level 3 under advanced taxation. It is my objective that as we go through this module in the principle of taxation, you'll be able to understand the fundamental principles, concepts, and things in the subject. Now, the core book that I'm going to be using in this class is going to be my book on taxation, definitely. There is no other book I can use than my book on taxation. I'll put that on the screen and you can see that as well there. So that is my new book on advanced taxation, released in December 2019 based on the new ICAG syllabus, which was effective from November 2019 upwards. So that is what this masterclass or this class is going to be based on, and I'm going to be using that book, the questions in the book, and also bring some questions as well outside what is in the book to help us solve and understand what we're going to be doing. But like I said, every note that I'm going to be providing you, I'm going to be putting it or taking them from the book, and that is what you need. You can request for the hard copy by calling the number on your screen, 050-114-9296, or the number on your screen, and you can get a copy of the book, and you can have the hard copy and study with it in relation to that. Right, so the first thing I want to do in this video is to give you an overview of principle of taxation. We want to discuss the syllabus, we want to discuss what each of the topics cover are. We want to look at what major areas we have to focus on, we have to look out for. We want to also discuss the issues in relation to how questions will be examined and how we need to position ourselves as students preparing for the examination. And that is going to be critical, that is going to be fundamental in relation to our preparation for the examination. So let's look at the overview of the principle of taxation, and let's go into how the syllabus has structured the subjects. So overview of principle of taxation. Now, if for any reason you are watching this video on YouTube, because it's an introduction, it's going to be available on my YouTube channel as well. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you are using any textbook at all, make sure you use the book in line with the syllabus, because a lot of the textbooks out there are not written for the ICA exams. They are not written based on the ICA exam. They are general taxation books. So if you are using those books, you have to make sure that you mark out the things that are in the syllabus that are in the book. Most of the time, there are things in the books that are not in the syllabus that you are not supposed to know about, and there are things in the syllabus not covered in a specific book that you are using. So my recommendation to you is, apart from my book, that is the advanced taxation book, I write my books purposely based on the ICA syllabus. So my taxation book is purposely based on the CA syllabus, and everything in the book there is relevant for your examination. But if you are using any other textbook, make sure you use it in line with the syllabus. That is very, very important, so that you don't, because I've seen a lot of people learn a lot of things that are not in the syllabus, that are not required to be covered, but because of the book they are using, they learn other things that it becomes very difficult and very challenging for them. So you make sure that you take note of that, because it's very, very important for you to prepare for your examination. So overview of principles of taxation. Now, from the syllabus, the principle of taxation is divided into 10 sessions. So there are 10 sessions that you're going to look out for here. Now, section A has to do with the Ghanaian tax system. The Ghanaian tax system. This is 5% on our syllabus grading. Now, with the Ghanaian tax system, this is where we're going to be looking at issues in relation to understanding taxation. Why do we charge tax? Importance of taxation, administration of the taxation, various the Ghana Revenue Authority, their role in taxation, the various types of taxes that we charge. That is the Ghanaian tax system. Various things about self-assessment and then provisional assessment. So everything about the Ghanaian tax system. So more or less like an introduction to taxation. I'll be covering that as well as we continue in our discussion, and that is going to be very critical aspect. It's going to set the tone for us, and like you know, it's 5% of the syllabus grading. You're also going to be looking at the structure of the Ghana Revenue Authority, the governance of the Ghana Revenue Authority, the role that it plays as a revenue collecting agency for the government of Ghana, and how the role helps government to achieve various objectives. You know that one of the major sources of revenue for governments across the country, to be specific Ghana, is tax revenues. So and governments around the world have found how they can increase the tax nets and also be able to let a lot of people pay a lot of the tax in order to help the government to achieve its objectives. So Ghanaian tax system, we are going to be talking about the overview of taxation in general. Then we come to the second aspect, that is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy. That is also 5%. Okay? That is also 5% in relation to that. Now, when we talk about fiscal policy, it has to do with how government raises revenue through taxation and also spend the revenue through, how do we call it? Through expenditures. So we want to look out for now. Remember, one of the fiscal policy tool is going to be debt. And you know that every government borrows a lot. Like allegedly that this current government is being heard that they borrow a lot, and you can see they borrowing a lot, but they justify the borrowing. IMF has been warning the country about it, and so we want to here you'll be looking at the effects of those borrowing on the economy, the effects of those borrowing on individuals, the effects of those borrowing on businesses, and how government uses those fiscal policy tools to stabilize the economy. And so it's a very huge area, very bulky area, but it's 5% based on what? The syllabus grading. So you're going to be looking at how debt is used as a fiscal policy tool, how taxation is used as a fiscal policy tool, how government expenditure is used as a fiscal policy tool, and how all of those things affect the economy. We're going to be discussing something like that in relation to that. The C has to do with the tax administration, and that is 10%. I gave a glimpse of that in the Ghana tax system. So with the tax administration, we are looking at the various systems for assessment, time limit for the submission of returns, time to file, pay, claim, refunds, penalties and interest for non-compliance, tax administration reforms, and all other things. So that is tax administration. So we're going to be looking at that. So if, for instance, you are supposed to pay VAT and you don't pay the VAT, what is the penalty there? If, for instance, you are supposed to file for your VAT returns and you've not filed it, what is the penalty? We're going to be looking at that. Then other forms of assessment of tax liabilities, all of this. Essentially, when I'm teaching, when I start teaching, I'm actually going to be merging these two guys. I get it. I'm going to be merging these two guys where after discussing the system, we just swoop straight up into tax administration because they are just closely related. Then we come to D, one of the key aspects of the syllabus, and that is income tax liabilities. Income tax liabilities. And that is 20% of the syllabus. Alright? So with income tax liabilities, this is where you are calculating the income tax of individuals and then partnerships. Very, very important. So you're going to be looking at, if you remember this, maybe this is your first time, so let me not say if you remember. If you are calculating the income tax of an individual, what do? You bring their basic salary, okay? You bring the various allowances. Now, allowances are cash allowances. So you bring that to the basic salary, and that gives you, and then you bring the allowances in kind or benefits in kind. You get your total cash emolument. Then you are going to be lessened or relief that is due the person. Social security contribution will be a relief. Provident fund will be a relief. Marriage, education, all of that will be less. Then we'll get a chargeable income of the individual. Then we use the graduated or schedule for the payment of tax, and then we calculate what the tax liability of the individual. Now, for partnership businesses are not subject to tax, but the partners are subject to tax. So at the end of the day, when we prepare when we get a total profit for the partnership business, the profit will be shared to the individuals, and then they will get the relief that it's due them, and will get their chargeable income, and then they will pay their tax in relation to that. So it's a huge aspect of the syllabus. Definitely there is going to be a question on that in the exam hall, and you got to make sure that you understand everything there about the income tax liabilities. Then right after dealing with individuals, we go to organizations. So corporate tax liabilities, certainly that's also 20% of your syllabus. Corporate tax liability. So how do we compute the tax of companies, of organizations? So that's corporate tax liabilities. Now, when it comes to companies, they are going to be making profit. And then once they make the net profit, we are going to be given a footnote. And the footnote will explain the various adjustments that was made in deriving that profit. So we are going to be starting with the profit as tax expense, and we are going to be adding every non-allowable deductions, like depreciation is a non-allowable deductions, private expenses, non-allowable deduction. It has to be added back to the profit. The expenses that will be allowable must be exclusive, must be wholly, and must be necessary for the business to be undertaken. So it's also a huge area that we'll be looking at in relation to how we compute the tax liability for companies. And in dealing with tax liabilities of companies, one of the key nuggets you need to understand is that it is based on the industry that a company is in, as well as the location of the company. If, for instance, the company is located in Accra and Tema, that's going to be 25%. If it is located in other regions, it's going to be 18.25%. If it is district capitals, it's going to be 12.25%. So the rates are going to be different. So one key thing you must understand is that when dealing with corporate tax liabilities, you must identify what industry the company is in. Is it a manufacturing company, agro-processing company? Is it a free zone company? And then the location that they are in, because that will affect the tax liability of the company. So that is corporate tax liabilities, very huge area. Certainly there's a question waiting for us there in the exam hall, and you've got to be making sure that you understand that. Right after that, we go to F, and that is taxation of gains. 5% of the syllabus. Taxation of gains. So how do we deal with gains here? This has to do with the issue about capital gain tax. Alright? So if I buy land and I develop the land and I sell the land, I make profit on it. So if I buy a land for say $10,000. Okay? And I developed the land incurring a cost of $20,000. And I developed the land incurring a cost of $20,000. It means my total cost now is $120,000. Now, if my total cost is $120,000 and I sell the land for say $280,000, what does that mean? It means I make a profit. On that profit, I'm supposed to pay a capital gain tax, 15%. That is a land. I could also buy shares. Like let's say, whilst MTN did their initial IPO, I bought some shares. Then after some years, I sell the share and I make profit. It's also a gain that I've made. How do we tax that? So that is the issue about chargeable gain or taxation of gains there. And that is 5% of the syllabus. We will be discussing that as well. So from E we come to, from F we go to G, and that is gift tax. Gift tax. That is also 5% of our syllabus. Gift tax. So how do we charge gifts? Now, how many of you pay gift tax? Tell me. Do you pay gift tax? So gift taxation of gifts by individuals. So for instance, if you receive something from me, let's say I give you this tablet and it is say 3,000 cedis, it's a gift you received. You're supposed to pay tax on it. Alright? So we're going to be looking at the basic principles arising with gifts. And then if someone dies, give the transfer of properties to another person, how do we deal with all of that? So that's also 5% of your syllabus, something critical you need to understand. Then we come to H, that is Social Security and Pension Fund. Social Security and Pension Fund, also 5% of the syllabus. So this is where we deal with administration of Social Security. So how to compute the Social Security, the second tier, the third tier, voluntary contribution, and how we deal with pension computation of employers and the employees. That is also there. Then the effect on the employee remuneration planning, and then the time for planning or filing contribution reports. So how pension is supposed to be done. So the Social Security contribution, the issue about first tier, and then what? Second tier. So all of that, its computation and filing, something that we need to understand, and it is 5% of the syllabus. Then we come to another key aspect of the syllabus, and that is going to be VAT, and that is 15%, value added tax. Very, very crucial, very, very critical. There has been a couple of modifications to the VAT recently, and you must understand how the computation goes by. So we're going to be looking at the various types of supplies that we have: zero-rated supply, exempt supply, zero-rated exempt supply, mixed supply, and all of that things. Then most importantly, how you can compute VAT on various taxable goods. For instance, you know that you should know that your VAT is 12.5%, your NHIL is 2.5%, your GET fund is 2.5%. But the way you do the computation, it's going to be very, very different, and you got to make sure that you understand the concept, you understand the principles in relation to how it is done. The idea is that we're going to be bringing the value of the supply. Okay? Once you have the value of the supply, we bring NHIL. That is going to be 2.5% of that. Okay? You bring GET fund. That is also going to be 2.5% of that. Right? Then we get a taxable value. Then on that figure, we will charge a VAT of 12.5%. Okay? And then that will give us the tax invoice price of the product. So that is how the computation of VAT is going to be done, and we will look at that later on in detail, how we're going to be computing the VAT. But like I said, I'm giving you an overview, and it's a very critical thing, and so I need to touch on it here so that you have a deposit of it in your brain, in your mind, as we continue with our discussion. So that is how now the VAT is computed. So you realize that Instead of the 12.5 being on the value of the supply, it is now on the NHIL and GET fund inclusive value of the product. So we'll be looking at VAT, we'll be looking at the penalties for the filing of VAT, not filing VAT, sorry. We will look at the various procedures involved in the filing of VAT. We will look at goods that are exempted from the payment of VAT and charging of VAT, the minimum requirements for people to register for VAT, whether if your sales is going to be 200,000 Ghana cedis within the next 12 months. There is also what is called group registration, where group of retailers or suppliers are going to be coming there to register for it. Then we're also going to have the flat rate. You know, there's a difference between this one we have here and then the flat rate of 3%. That is usually for retailers and wholesalers, and the idea is that once you are charging this flat rate, you're not going to be doing all of these. It's going to be just a flat rate on the value of the supply, and that is taxed. Then the smooth thing is that once you are charging the 3%, you know, input VAT. When I'm buying and I pay VAT and I'm selling, I collect VAT. That is output VAT. So at the end of the day, I'm going to file a return of what I paid input and what I received output. Then we will compare the two and remit the balance to the Commissioner General or be refunded by the Commissioner General. So that will be done in the normal VAT system. But if you are charging the flat 3% VAT rate, then there will not be any payments or any application for refund for your input VAT. And like I said, we'll get deeper into this later on as we begin the discussion. And I know you're going to love it a lot because taxation is an interesting topic. I cannot overemphasize that. Very interesting topic or subjects. Then the last one, GHIJ, is withholding tax administration. Very huge area, withholding tax administration. And that is 10% of our syllabus, withholding tax. So what is the concept about withholding tax? Goods and services, works, and those things, dividends. So for instance, if a company declares dividend and paying the dividends to its shareholders, they must withhold 8% of that. It's part of the withholding tax system. If you sell goods to me and you, how do we call it? I'm paying you, I'm supposed to withhold some amount of it, I think 7.5% also. If I miss a rate, it's not intentional, okay? I may forget. And when we are dealing with that specific, I'll give you the specific rates there. So when we are making such payments, we need to what? Withhold the tax. And at the end of the day, all the tax we withhold must be paid to what? The Commissioner General at the end of the day. So we're going to be looking at the various issues about tax administration on various forms of payment for resident companies, non-resident company, permanent establishments, and then non-permanent establishments, and a whole lot of issues about that in relation to that. So these are what you need to understand when we talk about the overview of principle of taxation, and this is how the syllabus is. So if you are using any tax book, and these things, anything here is not in the tax book, then you have a problem. So you have to look for another book or look for another material that has that thing. If you are using a book that has everything in there, you take out only these chapters, and that is what you're going to be what? Focusing on in relation to that. But certainly if you have my book, Advanced Taxation, all of this, I got you covered there in relation to that. So that is it about principles of taxation. So where is the sweet spot? Where is the area that we need to take away? Where is the area that we need to look out for and look out in very importantly? Like I mentioned earlier, income tax liabilities is a conk area. We're going to be having a question there. Corporate tax liability is a conk area. We're going to be having a question there. VAT is a fundamental area. We're going to be having a question there. Withholding tax, fundamental area. We're going to be having a question there. And then the tax administration, fundamental, we're going to be having a question there. Now, that doesn't mean the rest of the ones that are 5%, we're not going to be having a question there. We could equally have questions there, but the key areas that we need to make sure we exert a lot of energy, understand the principles, spend much time on, it will be the income tax liability, the corporate tax liability, the VAT administration, withholding tax administration, and then tax administration itself. I believe that if you're able to look at these areas very well and go through the course with me from now till we finish, and also join our executive revision masterclass and be part of the masterclass, I know that I can assist you so that together you can become successful and take your life to another level. So this is the overview of principle of taxation, and we'll be going through it one after the other, making sure that you build your understanding, you build your muscles to be able to pass the examination. If you have any questions, you know what to do. Leave it in the comment box if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, or you can write it down during our one-on-one session via Skype. For you, the online students studying on our portal, you can put it down, and during our one-on-one discussion sessions, I'm going to be answering that as well for you. So let's get going and let's go to the next video as we start with Ghana tax system. I'll see you and enjoy the lessons.